universe doesn't make mistakes, or at least that's what people like to believe. But the truth is far crueler than that, because the universe doesn't care who you love. It only cares who survives. And Ethan Cross learned that lesson the moment reality shattered around him. Because in one universe the war was over, the sky above New Earth was calm for the first time in decades, and he was lying on a rooftop balcony with his wife Mara Vale resting against his chest. The woman he had married in secret during the war when survival was never guaranteed, and promises were whispered instead of spoken aloud. The woman who had fought beside him, bled beside him, and chosen him when the world was falling apart. And as the stars stretched endlessly above them, she asked him softly if he thought the universe remembered people like them. And Ethan told her he didn't care if it did because he remembered her, because love had become his definition of reality. But then the pain came without warning, not like thunder or explosion, but like glass breaking inside his mind, light tearing through his vision, his body slamming into something hard as the sky turned red and sirens screamed around him. And when Ethan opened his eyes again, he wasn't in his universe anymore. He was on a burning battlefield in another reality where the war never ended, where smoke filled the air and soldiers screamed as they died. And when his instincts took over and he grabbed a weapon from the ground and aimed at the approaching figure, his heart stopped because standing across from him was Mara. But not the Mara who smiled in her sleep or laughed quietly at bad jokes. This Mara was wearing command armor, her face hardened by years of war, her eyes cold as she aimed a gun directly at his heart, ordering him to put his hands up. And when he said her name like a prayer, she looked at him with pure hatred and said that knowing her name only meant he was important enough to die slowly. And she fired, forcing him to dive for cover as the impossible truth settled into his bones, that in this universe Mara Vale wasn't his wife. She was Commander Vale, the most feared tactician of the resistance, and he was her enemy, a Dominion officer she had sworn to destroy, and they fought through the ruins like ghosts who knew each other too well. Every punch anticipated, every block perfect, their bodies remembering something their minds didn't, because in another universe they had learned each other through love instead of violence. And when Ethan finally disarmed her and pinned her against a shattered wall, their faces inches apart, something cracked in her expression as her hand trembled and she whispered that this felt wrong. And Ethan told her the truth, that somewhere she was his wife, and she shoved him away in fury and ran. But doubt followed her like a wound that wouldn't close, because that night when she tried to sleep, visions haunted her of a ring on her finger, of Ethan laughing, of holding each other after battle with blood on their hands and relief in their tears. And she woke up screaming, demanding to know what he was doing to her, while Ethan, bleeding and alone in an abandoned station, laughed bitterly through the pain because even in a universe where she hated him, she was still the one who broke him. And when Mara found him at dawn wounded and weak, she should have killed him. Every rule of war demanded it. But instead she arrested him, unable to explain why she couldn't pull the trigger. And during his interrogation, she demanded to know who he really was. And he told her he was the man who loved her in every universe. And when she slammed her fist on the table and shouted that he didn't know her, he calmly described the scar on her shoulder she got saving a child in a bombing that never happened in her reality. And the certainty in his voice shook her so deeply that tears burned her eyes even as she told herself she hated him for making her feel human. And when a resistance scientist confirmed the impossible truth that two universes were overlapping, that memories were leaking and souls misaligned, that in another universe she had married her enemy and been happy. The word happy made her feel sick because it meant everything she believed about herself might be a lie. And when Dominion forces attacked the base and chaos exploded around them, Mara unlocked Ethan's chains and told him not to make her regret it. And they ran together through fire and screaming metal just like they had in another life, fighting side by side, back to back, blood and ash coating their skin, until an explosion knocked Ethan to the ground as he shielded her with his body. And as he collapsed, she grabbed him, crying and shaking, telling him not to die in her universe because she couldn't lose him in another one too. And later in the ruins when the battle finally ended, Mara broke down completely, admitting that she hated how safe she felt with him, how her entire life she had chosen duty and war over everything else, and now love was tearing her apart. And when Ethan told her that love doesn't ask permission and pulled her into his arms, she sobbed against his chest because she didn't want to love her enemy, but she already did. And when the truth came that the universes were collapsing and only one could survive, that merging realities would erase one version of them forever, the choice became unbearable because in one universe, Mara lost her war, and in the other, Ethan lost his wife. And as Mara stared at the stars, she raged at a universe that always made love come with pain. And Ethan told her softly that love was the only thing worth losing everything for. And in the end, Mara made the choice no one expected, sabotaging the merge to save the universe where they were married, ensuring Ethan could live in peace, but choosing to stay behind herself in a dying reality. And when Ethan realized what she had done and screamed her name, she smiled through tears and told him she finally understood that love wasn't about staying together. It was about letting the other live. And as the tear between universes widened and their fingers brushed one last time, she whispered that she would choose him in every universe before disappearing forever, leaving Ethan alive in a peaceful reality where the war ended, and the sky was calm, but the bed was empty, and the ring still sat heavy on his finger. And years later, when a weak signal arrived from a collapsing universe containing only one sentence, "I still choose you," Ethan smiled through his tears because he finally understood that they were married in one universe, enemies in another. But love was never limited to a single reality, because some loves are so powerful they survive even when the universe itself does not.